let me put the spine on your mats so we have more contrast. Can we move this pile a bit so that there's a bit more visual clearance? Come as close as you would like. All right, so clearly in the lifting of a head, you can see that the fronts of the vertebral bodies the discs between the vertebral bodies get compressed, and the disc in the back of the vertebral bodies, they get uncompressed, stretched, a little bit of tension, right? So there's that. So in other words, that's the flexion in most deeply internally in the spine. But I think there's another component, which is that as you lift the head, it isn't just that some parts of the spine and therefore ribs go back, but if you think about the fact that as you lift, it actually loads a little bit of compression into the spine so that the weight doesn't just go backward more to the floor, which is where we direct it very much for our beginning students. But for us, if we start thinking, now I'm going to plunge myself to the floor, so just maybe watch your feet. So if I am just lifting my head in the standard thing, my feet are standing, and I think about where my breastbone goes, and I think about breathing out, and I actually even think about where the elbows move through space so that I hook the chest. But I'm thinking a lot about my ribs in relation to the floor, right? So I think about rolling the weight downward to ribs, lower and lower. That, I'm saying, is a different experience than if I allow all that to happen, but think about how the lifting of my head, this action here, I could use that to pass some of the weight downward through my spine. It's there, right?
Yeah. Downward which way?
So downward is always that way, not backward.
Yes.
Downward to the spine, right? Downward to the spine. So that was the instruction to you. Let's see if I can.
Down the spine.
There, hang on a second, I've got to remember. There, it was this leg was there. Yeah. Head was turned this way. That when, and all I'm going to do is lift my head for now. So when you lifted your head, you thought more about the flexion that was needed, then what started happening is your shoulder started coming away from the floor. I'm exaggerating a bit about how, but okay, like that, there. But the minute you started thinking about this and strategizing, which is like, okay, there's some side bending here in the neck, and then there is the weight goes down through my spine, as well as a little bit backward. I mean, it's like for me, now my arm is also staying back. But if I only think about flexing, then what happens is C7 comes forward more and more and is going to drag on this shoulder. Or the other thing would be for me to go and roll on the side, which is what you were doing, right? And I don't know when and where I started thinking about this, probably as I was lying, going through some ATM for a millionth time when somebody was teaching and finding more different things about it. And we're like, oh my God, that's right, that stacks the weight. Downward, right there, downward through the spine, and then this stays back. And not only that, but my abdominal muscles are much more free. So this is what my voice sounds like. And if I think of just lifting the head, this is what my voice sounds like. You see how it just got, yeah, here and here. It just got, just got pinched.
And then the lift that we were doing.
Yes, let me see. I mean, I am not prepared. I'm not prepared. I'm not, right? I'm going to do my thing to see how much I can do. So there's a little bit of, right. I just lost it. You know, it was like I thought my head was turned to the right.
Yeah, you have to change
Wow.
your arms.
Sorry?
You have to change.
You have to change your arms.
You have to back
Yeah.
No, you're okay.
That's right. Depends on which variation. If it's the same
It
side
depends. There were two variations. There was this variation. There was this variation. This is why This is the one that for many of you took you here.
Yep.
Right, took you there, dragged yourself over here to the armpit. And so, you know, I tried to address that in various ways. One is it the edge of the mouth or the eye? Because that's even further back. Or is it here, like what, or cheekbone? Where are you orienting yourself in the middle of yourself? And then that wasn't enough because still people were going like this. So then I started saying, well, when you lift your head, it can go to, you can call it your left and your right, or forward and back. Depends what you're orienting to, right? If I'm orienting to my pelvis, that's left, that's right. If I'm orienting to my face, that's forward and that's back. And if I take my head really forward, I'm already way off to that. But if I go too far back, that doesn't do it either. So but if I play with that, I then arrive at a place where somehow everything, this arm is up, sir, right? Everything contributes to this dropping, my area of my waist and the lower ribs dropping back. And here, what I find genius about it, in a moment I'll do this variation, okay? But what I find genius about it is that because of the lifting from below in such a way that these lower ribs and the lower back already drop back, when I lift the head, I'm not lifting the head so that these lower ribs drop back. Right? Very often that's what we do. We lift the head so that the lower ribs drop back. Well, that's being handled from below. Therefore, that's being handled from below, so I am much more free to discover many more nuances higher up. And many more nuances of having the head lifted, but me being long, which of course is almost mandated by that arm here, because here I'm already getting shorter in the front and longer in the back. So this is so clever in that it actually keeps us discovering length, which is,
And then that sets you up to be able to do the hair, because then you can still do the length from the hair while you're able to come down through the spine simultaneously.
I think I'm with you. Can we hang on for a second?
Yes, of course,
Okay,
sure.
great. Okay, so here, I've changed the legs, right? So now, if I only lift from below, that's going to drop the right side of my waist backward. Yeah. And the great thing about that dropping back is that it has to do with length, because I'm not doing any rounding, because I'm repeating myself, right? I'm not doing any rounding, lifting of the head to bring those ribs back. So I'm doing that from below, here it is, and simultaneously I'm lifting my head. So that means, especially if I want to land on the ribs between the spine and the inside edge of the shoulder blade, that encourages the length, because if I lift the head much higher, I'm below the shoulder blade.
I think I was lifting too
Huh?
high. Maybe I was lifting too high.
You
too.
said two
Maybe.
other things that were
Did I?
the circle, the two circles were really helpful.
That was from yesterday I talked about them, because I think today I didn't even bother. Or no, I did.
I did.
Oh, that was when you had the two legs.
Yeah.
When you had the two legs in
Keeping
here.
that image
Yeah.
was helpful to stay
Yeah.
next to the spine.
Great.
And then
Good.
softening the ribs.
Uh-huh. Good. Yeah.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, I try to say, sometimes people may feel like I say too much, but I think it helps.
Not yet.
Yeah, because not yet. No, because some
all
things,
contributes.
I think if we don't specify, they'll never be discovered.
Yeah.
Because we can just go, yeah, that's it, right? Yeah.
So you were really differentiating the shoulder, in a sense.
From. Differentiation has to be something from something.
Yeah, from the ribs. They were
The
free.
shoulder girdle, you mean?
The shoulder girdle.
From the ribs. or
From
the
the ribs.
ribs from the shoulder girdle. That's one aspect, yeah, absolutely, that's right. And what I'm suggesting is that differentiation can happen much more clearly if I think of lifting not just as a flexion, but if I think of lifting as something that also directs some of the weight. So it's like I'm using my hand to pass some of the weight of my head down into my spine.
To be supported.
You're using the
Yeah,
weight
to
of
be
your what?
supported, yeah. Head,
Oh, I just said
head, right? Because I can be thinking of, I'm just lifting my head. And I'll tell you, I've got a couple of things happening here. First of all, you hear my voice again, right? And my hand is beginning to claw, and the left side of my neck is going, ah! But if I lift my head and I think about that I'm using my arm to direct that weight downward into my spine, you heard the change in my voice? Yeah? The left side of my neck has just gotten longer and feels a hell of a lot better than it did before.
What about when you asked us to have the hand in a light fist? What was that about?
That's not
Extended
this
hand.
ATM.
Well, that was an earlier. Oh, oops.
Yeah, that's
Gotcha.
this one.
So sorry.
That's
Yeah.
this one.
Thank you. So
That's
sorry.
this one. And I think that this is a clever thing where, because for most of us, when we make a fist, we actually shorten ourselves, right? We use global pulling in. And so I think when he has a fist like that, it's like, okay, can you have a fist and nonetheless find a way for these tissues here to lengthen? I think. I have no idea. He has not been answering my emails, so there it is.